answered by a boot from the Austrian.
Oh, they're caught the top, the top, and oh!
WrestleMania 41 was shaping up to be an unforgettable spectacle, with fans anticipating classic matchups and history-defining moments. However, what transpired that night defied expectations. Justo, the underdog with everything to prove, stepped into the spotlight and did the unthinkable. Not only did he defeat the undefeated force that was Gunther, but he also took away the one thing Gunther held above everything else, the World Heavyweight Championship. This wasn't just a win for Justo, it was a symbolic moment that tore down the very foundation of Gunther's reign, his dominance, his legacy, his entire identity in WWE. Gunther was no longer the imposing figure who ruled with an iron fist. He was just a man on the verge of unraveling. Typically, when a champion loses, there's a structured aftermath, a post-match promo, a rematch announcement, perhaps even the slow burn of a redemption arc. But not this time. Gunther didn't wait for a response, didn't address the crowd with his usual icy composure. There would be no stage confrontation, no redemption story. What followed was far more chilling and unpredictable. The chaos after WrestleMania, Gunther's fury unleashed. The night after WrestleMania, Raw emanated from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and the air was electric with excitement. Justo stood in the ring celebrating his monumental victory with the WWE Universe. Fans were on their feet, chanting his name, lifting him up as a new hero. It should have been a night of triumph, one for the ages, but what happened next completely shifted the atmosphere. The camera panned to the ramp, and suddenly the mood darkened. There was no dramatic entrance, no cue of lights or music, just the heavy footsteps of Gunther, storming down the aisle with fury in his eyes. His face was twisted in rage, his usual controlled demeanor replaced by raw emotion. The crowd fell silent, unsure of what they were witnessing. Gunther didn't make his way to the ring to confront Justo, no. Instead, he veered off to the commentary table where Michael Cole and Pat McAfee sat. They were caught completely off guard, their smiles fading into confusion as Gunther approached. This wasn't part of the script. This wasn't entertainment. This was real. Gunther had lost all restraint. He towered over them, his voice a mixture of German and English, spitting words of frustration and anger that had built up over months, maybe even years. Gunther's violent outburst, a shocking assault. And then, in a moment that felt like something out of a nightmare, Gunther's fury exploded. First, he shoved Michael Cole out of his chair, sending the commentator tumbling to the floor. But that was just the beginning. Gunther's gaze shifted to Pat McAfee, and in an instant he grabbed him by the throat. The crowd gasped in collective horror as Gunther lifted McAfee off his feet, choking him live on air. McAfee, wide-eyed and struggling, had no chance to fight back. His face turned red, his hands clawing at Gunther's grip. But it was clear. The Austrian powerhouse was in complete control. Security rushed the scene, but Gunther wasn't done. He broke free from the official's grasp, returning to McAfee with the same violent fury. He slammed McAfee to the ground, reapplying the chokehold with such intensity that it seemed as though the life was being squeezed out of him. The audience, once cheering, now let out a chorus of boos, their anger mixed with fear. This wasn't a wrestling match anymore. This was a breakdown, a loss of composure from a man who had always prided himself on discipline and control. The aftermath, a divided WWE universe. The damage was done. When the assault finally ended, McAfee was helped away from the commentary desk, barely able to stand, while Michael Cole, visibly shaken, was left speechless. The arena, once filled with jubilant cheers, was now eerily silent. This wasn't sports entertainment. This was something else entirely. Gunther's attack wasn't just an act of aggression, it was a cry for help, a declaration of war, or perhaps the first steps into a darker path from which there would be no return. The aftermath of the attack was immediate. WWE officials convened behind closed doors, their discussions focused on the consequences of Gunther's actions. Could this be grounds for suspension or even termination? Fines and punishment were on the table, but there was a lingering question. Would enforcing any punishment only push Gunther further into madness? Was it even possible to contain the destructive force he had become? Backstage, the locker room was on edge. Word spread quickly, and superstars whispered about the unpredictability of Gunther's new persona. Some were too afraid to speak out, fearing that they could be the next target of his wrath. Others were calling for swift action, warning that Gunther's transformation into a wild, vengeful destroyer had already crossed the line. Pat McAfee, meanwhile, had yet to return to television, and fans wondered if he would ever be the same after such a violent attack. The Undertaker's warning, darkness looms. As the days passed, it wasn't just WWE officials or the locker room that took notice of Gunther's violent actions. The dead man himself, the Undertaker, a figure who rarely speaks unless the stakes are truly dire, broke his silence. He took to social media, delivering a chilling statement that sent shockwaves